It has been 5 days since 28 Kenyans were brutally murdered by Al-Shabaab militia in Mandera, and President Uhuru Kenyatta has finally broken his silence.
And after all the public pressure for the president to act, he made it clear that security is not just the government's responsibility, but also yours, the citizen.
That's right, and tonight on KTN Prime, we want to start with the BQ. We're asking you on this day, on this security issue, do you agree with the president that the buck stops with everyone?
Let us know what you think, and you can do that by SMSing us on 22155 or tweet us at Kachungira, at Wilson_Mburu, at KTN Kenya, and we'll sample some of your views during this bulletin.
This is KTN Prime.
Moja kwa moja wanaaga ukiona ubongo ukimwagika, damu ikimwagika, lakini kwa juu ya mti inabidi uvumilie tu.
A lucky escape, 1 man's tale of how he survived the Mandera attack.
So the responsibility lies first and foremost with you and me as citizens of this republic.
It's not just my job. Uhuru's response to the outcry over Mandera.
Who should go home over security lapses? Analysts weigh in.
The struggle continues. Glowing tributes at Kajwang Memorial Service.
Welcome to the program. My name is Wilson Mburu.
I'm Nancy Kachungira, and our sign language interpreter is Mirisha Owiti. Now, as we will be telling you in a short while, President Uhuru Kenyatta is back, and he's facing the same questions that have been begging while he was away.
But one man in Kakamega might give him a better picture of what happened on that dreadful Saturday morning. 28-year-old Atibu Osinga escaped from the Al-Shabaab line of execution and cheated death by climbing a tree and hiding there till danger had passed.
KTN's Francis Ontomwa begins our coverage with that story of a lucky escape.
Shianda village in Kakamega swept by a jovial mood. A special moment indeed for the son of the soil who cheated death by a whisker in a faraway land. And since he arrived, visitors have been streaming into his homestead to listen to the heart-wrenching story. Escape from the jaws of death is the story of Atibu Osinga.
Concentrated kwa wale ambao walikuwa ndani ya gari. Sasa vile ndienda kana kama nataka kulala chini, nienda karibu na kichaka, watu nilijifinyilia ndani. Kuna miiba, lakini sikujali hayo, nilifinyilia ndani na kutokea upande mwingine wa kichaka. Na I mean those shrubs, so kuna shrub hapa kidogo, shrub hapa kidogo. So ukipata shrub unaingia ndani. Sasa ndiingia ndani hiyo shrub, ikatokea kando the other side ya hiyo shrub.
The devastating mental pictures keep circling in his mind, sometimes even giving him sleepless nights.
So ndio hawa baada ya kupangwa tukawa na mazungumzo kidogo baina yao wenyewe kwa wenyewe, na wakaamua sasa mmoja akaenda sehemu nyingine ya safu, mwingine sehemu pande nyingine ya safu. So baada ya muda tu wakaanza kufiatulia hawa risasi kwa vichwa. Moja kwa moja wanaaga ukiona ubongo ukimwagika, damu ikimwagika, lakini kwa juu ya mti inabidi uvumilie tu.
2 years ago, the father of two made the life-changing decision to depart for Mandera, a far-flung land but one that would have given him hope, at least during the time when he could not get employment in his village. And just after finishing his studies at the Mosorio Teachers Training College, off he went to Mandera. Back home, tension started building right from the time the news went on air on the ill-fated journey that ended in the jungle. His wife, Judy Dosundwa, narrates the mind-boggling tale.
Jaribu ukimpigia simu aingi. Sasa nikapata message. You tried to call me but I was unreachable. Please call me back. Sasa nilipompigia simu ilikuwa inaingia na mtu ashiki.
The return to home gives consolation for the moment, but ahead lies a tough test of how he'll fend for a family that entirely depends on him for survival. But will he consider making a comeback to Mandera once the dust settles?
Arudi huko mimi siwezi kubali kwa vile amenusurika, ni kama ametema kutoka midomoni mwa simba.
All over the country, but nothing to do with the northeastern part of Kenya.
Atibu Osinga's search for greener pastures took him to Mandera County 2 years ago. But the saddening events of last Saturday have made him to make a vow never to return back to Mandera. Francis Ontomwa, KTN, Shianda Village, Kakamega.
Now, as we mentioned, here in Nairobi, President Uhuru Kenyatta appeared in public for the first time since he came back from the now controversial trip to Abu Dhabi. The president, who has been under pressure to crack the whip on security, now says he cannot do this job alone. He spoke as the National Council of Churches called on his government to deal decisively with the security challenge. Patrick Amibo now reports on why some of the president's comments are not going down well with Kenyans on social media.
The president has been out while the country burned, and he got all the flack as Kenyans reacted angrily to photographs embassy known as selfies showing him enjoying a Formula One event in Abu Dhabi. And when he returned, he quickly tweeted about it. "I have been out of the country for a few days, as you have seen from the selfies in the newspapers," went his tweet. But the president seemed to turn the heat back on Kenyans, insisting that the government should not be expected to do everything.
How much we do, there will never be one policeman for every citizen in this republic. It's not possible. Let us not cheat each other. Unless we as citizens work together with our security forces, all the things that we're talking about will never happen.
His sentiments drew mixed reactions on social media, with some accusing him of shirking his responsibility to ensure the country's security.
Na tutachukua hatua pia for those in the security forces who may fail in their responsibility.
In Limuru, the National Council of Churches of Kenya demanded more from his government.
The NCCK believes that the acts of terror that have been perpetrated against the church and other Kenyans happened in the full knowledge of local security agencies who are either conspirators, complacent, incompetent, or compromised.
The president spoke amid news that the 4 mosques that had been shut down in Mombasa will be reopened on Thursday following talks with the religious leaders. But he says the government will not allow places of worship to be used for what he called criminal activity and radical preachings.
Polisi wakiingia, mtu wa kwanza ni kusema ati dini fulani inadhulumiwa. Lakini wakati watu wanaingia, hiyo nyumba ndio imekuwa pahali ya kuweka silaha. Ndio kwa nini wewe kama kiongozi usiseme ya kwamba hatutaruhusu pahali pa kuabudu Mungu itumiwe, right, kueneza chuki?
Earlier, the president met top security advisors at State House Nairobi to discuss the recent waves of insecurity in the country. According to the president's communications unit, the meeting discussed action plans that will deter other attacks by terror groups and organized criminal gangs. NCCK says there are serious gaps in the country's security system, and even the much sought after sacking of the Inspector General of Police David Kimayo and National Security CS Joseph Ole Lenku will not stop the attacks.
The matter of security is a web. I do not think there is an Inspector General or Cabinet Secretary for Interior who individually will come and sort out this matter. First, terrorism is not your routine felonies and crime under the penal code.
The Christian clergy are very emphatic, and they want to see the government act decisively on matters security. And to their counterparts in the Muslim community, they want to see them move with bold steps and condemn those perpetrating crime in their midst. Patrick Amimo, KTN, Jumuiya Conference, Limuru.
The security issue certainly forms the basis of our big question tonight, and the President's comment that the buck stops with everyone is what we are asking. Do you agree with the President that the buck stops with you and me in regards to this security issue? And we're already getting some responses here. Let me read this one from Mageto Elijah, who says, This is not a yes or no comment. He just says, everyone for himself and God for us all. The earlier we realize that, the better.
Wow. Well, remember that you can tweet us your comment at Kachingira, at Wilson_Mburu, and at KTN Kenya, or you can send an SMS to 22155. Let me look at a few tweets here. This one from Joseph Nderich, who says, what cheek? Uhuru asked us, employers, for a job. We employed him. Now he says he won't do it, lakini mshahara na benefits zibaki.
Well, those are your views. Continue sending them. As Nancy said, 22155 is the SMS line at Kachingira, at Wilson_Mburu. We'll give you a poll result at the end of this live newscast.
Now, as we continue to talk about these issues, we have been reporting that the president has been posting numerous messages on Facebook and Twitter about his trip to Abu Dhabi. But amid the controversy, many of the real issues with this security challenge appear to have been lost in the noise. Well, KTN senior reporter Asha Mwilu has been taking some rather specific notes for the president and now has this welcome home message for him.
Hello, Mr. President. First, it's appropriate to welcome you back home. It is the African thing to do. We've been agonizing over how to reach you when you return. First, I thought of writing a letter. Then I remembered that you run a digital government. So, I turned to Twitter. After all, you've been quite active on that platform. But then, what I have to say won't be done in 140 characters. It's a lot, Mr. President. So I'll perhaps do an email, or better yet, let me post it on your Facebook page. We saw those images online on the great time you had at the Formula 1 event. I'm sure famous sporting events like the Grand Prix can be quite engrossing.
There is the policy.
I noticed you got a brief of what happened while you were away. So you must know the basics by now. The Al-Shabaab came back. This time, we lost 28 Kenyans. And just like the other attacks, it was horrible. But I took down some specific notes for you. In fact, I don't even want you to take my word for it. This man had a first-hand experience of the entire attack. And even though he survived, he was unable to save his fellow Kenyans. And guess what? His hometown is still unsafe. So I have to make sure that he's not the next target.
Sasa tuliambia nyinyi wengine wote mrudi kwa gari, nyinyi mwendeni mbele ya gari huko. Walalishwa chini. Ndio sasa risasi ikaanzika. Vile walimaliza risasi wakasema mnaweza shuka mchimbieni gari yenu mtoeni hapa gari yenu.
How I wish you were here, Mr. President, when this lady from Elgeyo Marakwet received news of her son's brutal death in Mandera. Maybe your words would have reassured her. You see, Mr. President, I've been doing the math. We all have. This year alone, 147 Kenyans have been killed by our enemies from Somalia. I covered the Westgate siege, and I still remember this gallant promise you made.
Our head is bloodied, but unbowed. The criminals found us unafraid, as we shall ever be. We cannot be conquered.
These terrorists don't seem to have taken heed, sir. Mr. President, do you remember the 60 people who died in Mpeketoni in June? Or the 21 officers killed in Kapedo last month? Not to mention the victims of the many grenade attacks that hit Nairobi earlier in the year. Some people think the people you hired to take care of our security should go home, Mr. President. In fact, Mr. President, the experts think you need to do more, a lot more.
We need to come up with our own national security strategy. That is very important.
But I can't tell you what to do, Mr. President. I'm no expert. What I can do is remind you what you told me earlier this year.
Ulinzi unaanza na mimi. Ulinzi unaanza na wewe.
Yes, and this vehicle you ride in these days is perhaps a good start, Mr. President. Only, we may need 40 million of them for all of us. After all, we are in this together, are we not? Ashamwilu, KTN.
A very passionate letter to the president on this security issue, and I'm sure that these are some of the sentiments just being coming out of this security situation in this country, and this is what is coming out in most of the tweets and SMSs that we are getting. Let me read this one from I Romana, who says, really? I pay taxes to protect myself? I don't think so, Mr. President.
Now, that's a sentiment that's being echoed quite a lot. Mike Easy on Twitter says, your watchman tells you that security is your responsibility. You tell him that's why you employed him. Why did we elect Uhuru? And F. Mogiri says, so the 3-year-old child, talking about the child that was molested, should have called cops? Should she have run away, scream? Or what should she have done to protect herself? And he goes ahead to say #victim blaming.
Remember that the hashtag we're using tonight is where the buck stops. Now, to that question that many Kenyans have been answering in different ways for the few days.
Yes, the last few days. Should anyone be fired over the crisis in the country?
If yes, who is that? KTN's Linda Ogutu has been speaking to some analysts to find out just who dropped the ball when it mattered the most.
Kimayo must go. Olelengu must go.
The frustration by thousands of Kenyans on the spate of insecurity that is slowly becoming a norm in a country that was once the beacon of peace in the Horn of Africa. The numerous senseless killings witnessed all over the country, testing the patience of even the most patriotic of Kenyans. The rallying call has been for Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelenku and for the Inspector General of Police David Kimayo to resign. In the eyes of the masses, they bear the greatest responsibility in the apparent failure in the provision of security for every single Kenyan as enshrined in the Constitution. But are they? Having served as Kenya's first Inspector General under the new Constitution, David Mwole Kimayo's tenure has been a trying one. It has been under his watch that insecurity has spiraled out of control. Kimayo may be removed from office on the grounds of serious violation of the Constitution or any other law, including a contravention of Chapter 6, gross misconduct, physical or mental incapacity to perform the functions of office, incompetence, bankruptcy, any other just cause. However, security analyst Mwenda Mbijiwe says Kimayo may just be a victim of circumstances that are beyond his control.
He just inherited a broken system.
The Inspector General is just a part of the equation. Though his office is independent, his political boss is the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government, Joseph Jama Olelenku. Olelenku himself has come under intense pressure as well to resign for failing to keep Kenya safe and secure. In the eyes of many, Olelenku has failed on numerous occasions.
National security is so critical, it's so central to national unity, peace, and stability that it needed a seasoned Kenyan, someone with immense experience. I don't think Lenku has failed. The man has done his best, only that his best is not good enough.
Major General Philip Ochira Kamero, do swear that I will do well and truly serve the Republic of Kenya.
Olelenku, to a large extent, depends on the Philip Kameo-led National Intelligence Service, whose many functions include detecting and identifying any potential threat to Kenya, advising the President and government of any security threat to Kenya, taking steps to protect the security interests of Kenya, and making recommendations to the President, National Security Council, and the Cabinet Secretary on policies concerning security measures which need to be taken by a State Department or agency. That agency, however, has of late been perceived as a toothless dog.
If we do not give the NIS some biting teeth, then it's a useless, failed national intelligence agency.
Once advised by the National Intelligence Service, the National Security Council, presided over by the President of the Republic of Kenya, takes the mantle and integrates policies relating to national security to enable the security organs to cooperate and function effectively.
In it sits His Excellency and his deputy, commanders of all the KDF services, that is Army, Navy, and Air Force, of course with the CDF, their chief commander, and head of the police, head of the NIS. It is the top cream of national security. If we are having national security problems, these are the people that can help us fix them. So if they are not fixing it, the blame should not actually be on Kimayo or on Lenku. It should be onto the entirety of the committee. Every one of them should take a portion of the blame, including the commander-in-chief.
That president presides over the National Security Council meetings that are meant to ensure that the people he swore to protect are safe. The Inspector General, the CS, the NIS are all under him. Indeed, that is what Kenyans want to know. Who is sleeping on the job as the country that was once a beacon of peace is transformed into a playing ground for terrorists? Linda Ogutu, KTN Prime.
Let's move away from the security issue for a moment. And hundreds of members of the public and leaders from across the political divide today attended prayers in final respect for the late Senator Atieno Kajwang. Family members and leaders alike eulogized the late Kajwang as a spirited leader who fought for social and democratic ideals. KTN's Sharon Momanyi attended the prayers and now gives us this report.
Covered in the ODM flag, the body of the late Homa Bay Senator Atieno Kajwang was moved from the Lee Funeral Home early morning, proceeding to the Nairobi Central SDA Church for a prayer service. Songs and words of praise and nostalgia marked the ceremony. The church service was rather intimate, with only family members, few leaders, and church members in attendance.
Handsome, funny, intellectual, but best of all, my lover and friend.
Not so for the afternoon session at Uhuru Park. Hundreds of people gathered here to mourn the death of the esteemed politician. They chanted the famous Bado Mapambano tune, the late Kajwang's signature. Led by the late senator's brother, Ruaraka MP TJ Kajwang, the leaders from various government arms termed the session as a celebration of the life of whom they called a patriot.
Alikuwa ni mtu ambaye alikuwa hana uoga. Atieno Kajwang alikuwa ni mtu ana busara.
Tutaendelea kupambana, hatutarudi nyuma na hatutanyamazishwa.
Alisimamia social democracy, sivyo? Alisimamia multi-party democracy, sivyo? Alisimamia second liberation, sivyo?
Kajwang also brought the new constitution.
We have therefore come to celebrate a life that was purposeful and delivered in the Senate. In the Senate, Kajwang will be missed because of his contributions.
The leaders also lauded the late Kajwang for what they called persistent efforts to ensure democratization is realized in the country. CORD leader Raila Odinga saying the CORD alliance would continue agitating for better security in the country.
Ukienda Mpeketoni, bomb. Ukienda Baringo, ukienda Kapedo, ukienda Garissa, ukienda Marsabit, bomb kila mahali.
The crowd would get a bit frantic when they were not allowed to view the body, a situation that soon got under control. The body of the late Senator Kajwang will be airlifted to his home in Waondo Village, Homa Bay County, for the final funeral program and burial on Friday, the 28th of November. Bado Mapambano was a resounding message from the various leaders who eulogized the late Atieno Kajwang here today. They say that they would hold the baton in the various battles that the fallen leader championed. Sharon Momanyi, KTN, Uhuru Park, Nairobi.
You're watching KTN Prime. Let's quickly remind you of our big cue this evening. The president says that when it comes to security, the buck stops with everyone. Do you agree with that sentiment? Here's a tweet from Prince James. He says, I agree with the president. Security does start with me, and may God help us.
Yusuf Samatar says, Mr. President, your response is an insult to those who lost loved ones in the Mandera attacks. Hashtag where the buck stops. This is KTN Prime. Of course, we're taking some of your views as the bulletin continues. We'll give you a poll result at the tail end of this newscast. We take a short break. We'll be back right after this. Just ahead, more senseless deaths from illicit brew.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime. Now, 4 people died after consuming alcohol in Katipanga village in Muranga County.
The 4 just suddenly dropped dead after consuming what police called Jebel vodka.
But Kenya Breweries Limited Holding, which has a brand called Jebel, has said there is no link whatsoever between their brand and the Muranga deaths.
The brew was being served at this bar in Kitapanga village. Ironically, the owner of the bar was one of the victims who died. According to police, the vodka that killed the 4 goes by the name Jebel. There is allegedly a Kenya Breweries vodka that goes by the same name.
Kweli pombe hizi zinauzwa kwa bar. Na bar hizi ni bar ambaye ni licensed katika area hii. Na ukweli ni kwamba kama waliuza pombe, then waliuza pombe mbaya. Kwa nini pombe watu wanasema ni hicho, all of a sudden imepotea kutoka kwa shelf?
Na ulituita kweko katika ofisi.
Na nilikuita kwa ofisi
na tukakaa chini na nikaanza kuuza chang'aa. Afadhali wakati nilikuwa nauza chang'aa kuliko hii pombe.
Evidence is being collected by Muranga police to find out what killed the 4.
Kwa hivyo mtatupatia nafasi, tutakaa hapa mpaka tujue baa ya kwanza imefunguliwa, baa ya pili imefunguliwa, ya tatu tunaongoja mama akuja afungue. Kwa hivyo tungependa kujua pombe hii imetoka wapi.
Kenya Breweries Limited officials visited the shopping center, but they declined to comment on the issue. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Now, on their part, Kenya Breweries Limited responded with a statement sent to newsrooms distancing themselves from the lethal drink that police identified as Jebel vodka.
Yes, KBL does maintain that investigations by their quality control team and local authorities did not establish any links with any of its products, specifically the Jebel special brand that it produces.
The company emphasized that the KBL product depicted in news reports is not the illicit brew in question.
Elsewhere, the Ugandan nanny who was captured on film ruthlessly beating a child in her care will appear in court on the 8th of December.
The nanny, who was previously facing child torture charges, will now be answering to a charge of attempted murder.
2-year-old Arnella Kamanzi, who underwent unthinkable abuse in the hands of her nanny, Jolly Tumusimire, appeared before the public once more during a press briefing. And according to her parents, she is in good health.
The disturbing video of Arnella being physically abused by her nanny went viral on social media platforms last week, sparking outrage from a global public.
Well, next tonight, it's time to find out what's happening in the business world. And for that, we go to Abby Agina. Good evening to you, Abby.
Good evening.
I do hear it's a good time to be a tech entrepreneur.
Oh yes, Nancy. We have quite a lot in our business news where Safaricom has announced that it will be sponsoring young startups. And also we have a story for you from Eldoret where we'll get to see how farmers are trying to boost their breeds. All this and much more after the break.
You're watching KTN Prime.
evening and welcome to KTN Business. My name is Abi Agina. Telecommunications company Safaricom has unveiled a 90 million shillings venture fund targeting tech entrepreneurs in the country. Through the fund, Safaricom will give financial support as well to Kenyan-based techpreneurs with startup companies. The 2-year pilot program hopes to bridge the funding gap that has existed for most tech startup companies, but it will not just be a walk in the park for them. As part of the investment, ranging from $75,000 to $250,000 US, Safaricom will invest as an equity partner, meaning they'll have a stake in the company. The financing can also be used as a debt instrument, with companies taking it up expected to pay back in a specified time period. To qualify, startups will also have to have a working product or service with an active user base that demonstrates their ability to create transformative solutions.
Companies that represent a youthful demographic. We want to see more women coming and trying to get access to the fund. We want to see developers with a social inclination, because we are going to be persuaded to invest in investments that have big social transformative impact in the areas of education, in the areas of access to healthcare, in the areas of agricultural innovation, and in the areas of security and public transport.
Well, very interesting news there for the young entrepreneurs. Moving on, the dairy sector is going through a major revolution in the North Rift region, with farmers importing cows from as far as South Africa. A group of 7 dairy farmers in Uasin Gishu County have spent close to 6 million shillings importing 23 pedigree Frisian Holsteins to boost their dairy output and improve their breed quality. Our North Rift reporter Masi Kandie has that report.
They are as healthy and as promising as they look. Strides taken by the Eldoret Dairy Farmers Association, EDFA, to set the region as the center for breeding in East and Central Africa. These are imported high-grade heifers from South Africa to boost milk production and improve quality of breeds.
And sometimes some of the heifers we buy from some of the breeders in this country are not actually the quality that we require. Somebody can tell me it's a pedigree, but when you come and buy the heifer, when you are the first calving, you're still doing about below 12 liters.
Tuesday morning, 4 farmers received the 23 Frisian Holsteins in cows that landed at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport on Monday and were transported by road to Eldoret. The pedigree breeds of heifers aged between 18 and 33 months are expected to calve down from January next year.
The first lactation is about an average of 25. The second calving, if you feed it properly, you are in 40. In the third calf, you now can maximize. When you are you can actually get the 60 liters.
There is high demand for high-grade breeds in the region. The 23 heifers were imported at the cost of 255,000 shillings each, a lower cost than the current breeds sold in the country at around 300,000, expected to transform the economic standards of farmers within the shortest time.
Today I'm going to do the insurance immediately for this one, because I don't want to risk.
EDFA was founded about 2 years ago. They are encouraging farmers to keep good records of the heifers. Masi Kandie, KTN, Uasin Gishu County.
Interesting there, my breed, my choice. As part of growing its regional presence, Commercial Bank of Africa is betting on raising 8 billion shillings through the stock market to fund the bank's expansion strategy. The bank will be floating a medium-term note with an eye on setting up branches in Rwanda and Burundi in the next 5 years. At least 4 billion shillings will go towards regional expansion, with the other funds being deployed to financing their Kenyan operations. The push among indigenous banks to go regional continues to gather steam, with Commercial Bank of Africa announcing that it wants to widen its footprint. The bank will be looking to grow its revenue base and shield its local operation from weathering any aftershocks, the eventuality of a drop in profitability.
The first countries we are looking at are Rwanda and Burundi. The second phase of the expansion will then bring in the countries which are bordering East Africa, with the plans we have in place, the idea is to ensure that in 10 years' time, we are actually operating in 16 markets.
According to CBA, the growth will be funded by a corporate bond to be floated at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The bond will be repaid within 6 years and valued in Kenyan shillings.
For the bank, I think it provides us with a core funding from a tier 2 capital perspective, which we can use to support our investments in Kenya and in the region. I think the principal reason for anybody going regional is that we have a market which is then much, much bigger.
CBA joins the growing list of banks shoring up their capital ahead of the central bank's 2015 deadline. As a Tier 2 bank, CBA is also looking to play with the big boys on the regional front to boost income. Banks with a regional presence generated $250 million in total revenues in 2013, which was a 13% year-on-year growth, a keen indicator as to why CBA is eyeing these markets. Other banks that have floated corporate bonds include CFC Stanbic, NIC and I&M. CBA will be sweating its assets to hit a balance sheet of 400 billion shillings by 2018, a figure that economists say is overly ambitious. Well, that's all we had for you on KTN Business tonight. Do keep it KTN for more business news. And one of the stories we'll be following for you tomorrow will be Ernst & Young. They'll be releasing a cybersecurity report just to tell you how the fraud cases are happening in the country. Well, my name is Abi Agina. Coming up next is Sports with Moses Wahisi.
A very good evening and welcome to today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. Now, starting us off, Samson Osumo of Impala is one of the new faces in the national sevens team that will be traveling for the Rugby World Sevens Series in Dubai next weekend. Paul to unveil his 12-man squad and another team that leaves the country on Thursday for the Confederation of African Sevens Rugby in Zimbabwe. Victor Ogale filed the following report.
Impala's Samson Onsomu received an early birthday gift. Onsomu will be turning 23 in 3 days' time, but he can begin celebrations after being included in Shuja's team to the second leg of the World Rugby 7 Series in Dubai on the 5th and 6th of December. Coach Paul True was forced to pick up unkept players since those he would have depended on are either injured or unavailable.
Samson Onsomu is a leader by himself. He's one player who carries even Impala Saracens, his local club. Having him in the team is huge and massive for us.
Kenya Harlequin Dennis Mohanji will also be making a comeback, having donned the national colors over 3 years ago.
The team naming today comes in quite as a big challenge because we have 2 tournaments going on in a space of 3 weeks.
Kenya, which is in the pool of death, which has USA, England and Australia, will not enjoy the valuable services of Kenya Harlequins Patrice Sagunda during the third leg in Wellington. However, the team will be boosted by the return of some of the season 7's players.
It was a bit of a challenge, I think, for us to put this team together, but I think we have a good mix. Some of the experienced players coming back into the team, especially within our forwards.
The 12-member squad will depart the country for Dubai on the 30th of November. True has also picked Kenya's Shujaa team for the Confederation of Africa Sevens, set for Harare, Zimbabwe this weekend. The team leaves the country on Thursday. The Dubai series marks 1 year since coach Paul True joined the National Rugby Sevens team as head coach. And the South African tactician hopes to use the Dubai leg as a preparation for Wellington Sevens. Victor Ogale, KTN, Nairobi.
To matters track now. Kenyan athletes, especially those residing in and around Eldoret town, will soon enjoy the services of Kipchoge Keino Stadium Start and Track. The facility, which has been undergoing renovation for the past 3 years, is in the final stages of completion. The contractor Ayub Sirat now says he'll be through with the exercise in a month's time. Ayub, who represents the main contractor, however, claims that he's yet to be paid about 120 million shillings. Upon completion, Kipchoge Stadium will relieve athletes in the region the pain of having to make do with dusty tracks at the Eldoret University Stadium. Lona Kiplagat High Altitude Training Camp in Iten, a private-owned facility, was the first of the Tartan track in that region. The search for the Kenya Volleyball Federation Queens and Kings of the Championship begin on Friday at the Makande Gymnasium in Mombasa. All the 8 teams, 4 from each gender, have arrived in the coastal city and are warming up for the big start.
4 matches have been planned for the opening day on Friday. Prison's men's team opened the busy first day with a clash against Cooperative Bank, who are bidding to win their first KVF title. The 8 teams taking part in the playoffs have been acclimatizing at the venue, the Makande Gymnasium in Mombasa. The women's teams taking part are title holders Kenya Prisons, Kenya Pipeline, KCB, and Nairobi Water. The General Service Unit, Kenya Prisons, Cooperative Bank, and the Kenya Defence Forces will be fighting for the men's title.
Kuna titisho kwa mtu yeyote, timu zote zinatoshana. As long as uko kwa playoff, wewe ni champion.
Still in Mombasa, the Kenya Ports Authority women's basketball team left the country for Tunis, Tunisia for the FIBA Africa Club Championships that throws off on Friday. KPA last appeared at the Continental Championships in 2001, and their coach Antonio Chugu says his team has what it takes to win the title.
Apart from our opponent who are coming from maybe Angola and Mozambique, the ladies are being motivated by the last time the ladies team participated, Eagle Wings, they performed well.
United States International University Africa is the other team representing Kenya. Joshua Kemboy, KTN Sports.
Right, so as we wind up this bulletin, let's go back to our big Q tonight. We did tell you that President Uhuru Kenyatta says that the buck stops with all of us when it comes to security, and we asked you whether you agree with that sentiment. Let's take a look at the poll result.
57% of you say yes, they agree with the president, while 43% of you say no. Michael Wafules here says the buck stops with me. The president has no clue what that statement means.
Francis Muiriri on Twitter says the government can't be everywhere. Its work is only to maintain law, but you are the one who enhances it. So he agrees there. Boniface Moimbo also agrees. Says, I completely support the president on that. The more we ignore, the more we will suffer.
Sir Conrad here has, this is at Conrad Ochego, he has a more radical view of this. He says, if the buck stops with every Kenyan, then train and arm all Kenyans.
Wow, okay. Winnie says, a government that cannot protect its people is a failed government. If the job is too much, then resign. And Mpika Sang says, I disagree because what benefit is my taxes and that oath to defend where the buck stops?
Alaise Olekisota here says, so what happens if citizens arm themselves and crudely provide security?
Good question. Well, you can keep that conversation going using the hashtag where the buck stops. Do keep tweeting us. Thank you very much for your participation tonight. Up next on KTN, of course, it's Wednesday. That means Jeff Koinange Live is coming up, and tonight he's speaking to Mark Okoth Obama Desanjo, who is an author and also the half-brother of President Obama.
Keep your eye on that. Keep your eye on that. Make sure you join Jeff Koinange. That is up next. Ask from us here on Mombasa Road, KTN News Center. My name is Wilson Buru. Have yourself a good night.
I'm Nancy Kachingira. Our sign language interpreter was Mirisha Weti. Good night. See you tomorrow.